Well, congratulations, Grant Holdecki. You won that last trivia round. So as a reminder, everyone keep playing because Grant may not end up the winner today. So up next, I'm really excited about this conversation. We are going to take a deep dive case study from a product called DL Freight that was developed by Walmart and DLT Labs. In fact, I was so impressed with this case study and the business value that it delivered to the trading partners that I wrote a case study on it with my colleague, Professor Remco van Hoek. Now, to lead this conversation, we have one of our founding members of the Blockchain Center of Excellence, Archana Shrishti. So she's in charge of blockchains for Walmart. And so Archana, I'm going to welcome you to the stage, and I'll leave it with you to introduce the speakers, and when you're ready, just call me back and we'll do our questions from the audience.
Thank you, Mary. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here with you all today. It's a fully packed day of learning, and I can't wait to hear everything else that the speakers will be presenting today. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome two of our amazing speakers to talk about how Walmart Canada and DLT Labs used blockchain technology to reimagine invoice processing. First, I want to introduce you to Alexi Schleckoff. He's an agile leader, IT leader with versatile technology, change management, and business background in managing teams to generate value through collective development and implementation. He has delivered more than 30 successful transformational IT programs and projects in Walmart Canada, US, and also in Europe. Prior to joining our team and a Walmart team in Canada in 2016, Alexi worked in a number of technology services companies, ISVs, and client organizations, including SAP, British Petroleum, Oracle, and US State Department. Welcome, Alexi. Our next, thank you. I also want to introduce you to Sergey Belayev. He's a seasoned C-suite, C-level executive with deep experience leading enterprise technology and innovation. In his current role as EVP and Chief Strategy Officer for DLT Labs, he guides the global growth of an emerging leader in applying blockchain to enterprise data management. Prior to joining DLT Labs, Sergey served as CIO at Walmart Canada and held technology leadership roles at Royal Bank of Canada, Canadian Tire, and in the public sector. Over the course of more than 28 years leading change across multiple industries, Sergey has cultivated a nuanced understanding of the ways in technology innovation impacts our teams, cultures, and society. Welcome, Sergey.
Thank you. All right. Is it now over to us?
Yes.
Let me share my screen first. So, good morning, everybody. And Alex, I believe first slide is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, the team. Just a few brief words about Walmart Canada. It's a quite large organization in its own right. So as you can see, it's really big in terms of sales. We have close to 100,000 associates, and we serve more than 1 million customers a day. In terms of the transportation services that will be focus of our case study today, we carry out transportation trips that include more than 500,000 loads per annum. We have 70 third-party carriers, and they execute probably about 75% to 80% of all the loads. And Walmart has its own fleet, which is obviously smaller. So relationships with our carriers and the ways we account for their services and our payments that are due are very critical. So that's the size and kind of the scale of Walmart in Canada. Next slide, please.
So thank you, Alexi. DLT Labs, we're a global company that develops blockchain-based enterprise platforms. Right now, like the number you see here of 225, it's an old slide. Now we have more than 400 people, And basically, we have probably the largest stable of the blockchain experts in terms of companies. So we have offices, head office in Toronto, Canada, development offices in India, several of them, an office in Japan, and then a number of partnerships globally. So very happy to be here, and thank you for spending the time with us. So let's talk about the blockchain and the project that was done for Walmart Canada. In 2017, Harvard Business Review published an article where they made a case that blockchain is not a disruptive technology, it's actually a foundational technology. And they were actually equaling it to another foundational technology and distributed technology called TCP/IP, that is known as internet today. And the case they were making is that it took about 30 years for a foundational technology of TCP/IP to really reach to maturity. And they were asking the question of, okay, if blockchain is the next foundational technology, how long would it take? What we'd like to argue today is that now in 2021, blockchain is actually becoming mainstream, right? It's maturing as foundational technology. Why do we think so? So what does it mean to be foundational? What does it mean to be mainstream? It means that it's conventional, general, commonly accepted, normal and prevailing. So now if you look into deployments of blockchain solutions today, we have largest enterprises globally, including Fortune 1, which we're going to cover today. It definitely integrates and works effectively with legacy systems and replaces some of them. It's industry agnostic and highly secure, which is interesting because originally it started in financial services, and now we see more and more use cases where blockchain is getting effectively applied in multiple industries. Today we're going to talk about retail, and it's highly effective in terms of cost savings. You probably heard a number of presentations here today about blockchain. I just wanted to highlight the slide because for us, from the business perspective, there are very specific values that blockchain brings. One is that it provides this real-time, single shared version of truth that allows companies and participants to reduce disputes and rework. It provides tamper-proof and traceable history that definitely simplifies workflow and makes compliance easier. And it also provides tamper-proof process automation through smart contracts that accelerates and provides for error-proof execution. So those are the three kind of key values for us in an enterprise of utilizing blockchain. With that, I'd like to pass the baton over to Alexi to talk more about the success that we've seen with Walmart Canada.
Thank you, Sergey. Before going into the project details, just wanted to give you all a little bit of flavor of what the problem was and why this problem was good as a use case for blockchain technology. Just a quick description of how our transportation services work. We have those 70 carriers, and they are large, medium-sized, or sometimes small companies that specialize in basically picking up trailers and taking them to destinations. And they work with Walmart using two elements of their contract. So there's always a base rate, and you can see at the bottom, there's a scale that divides the facts of transportation services into known and sort of unknown parts. So the base contract for moving stuff for Walmart is basically known. It's a legal document. It is signed every year, and it defines the base pay for the transportation services. However, in order to execute those services, there are a lot of moving components into the variable part of costs. And those components, they're called accessorial charges. They depend on a number of things. Whether it's a direct route to the place that the transport needs to go, or it has to go around traffic. What are the conditions, weather conditions? What are the type of fuel they're using? Are they carrying any hazmats? Is the cargo temperature controlled? And if so, did it stay controlled over the period of transportation? And there are multiple other elements. So in total, there are about 40 variable components that get added to the base rate for transportation and eventually make up an invoice. So, and it rightfully says here, every load is being described by about 200 data elements. So you need to crunch those data elements and make sense out of them before you can generate that invoice. Very easy to fathom how it worked prior to the project that we're describing to you. It was mostly manual. A driver takes a load to a destination, and then this fact of arriving and being handled at destination, whether it's a distribution center or a store or any other location, this fact is shrouded in mystery, so to speak, unless and until somebody reports on how this trip went. And all those details, all those precious 200 data elements are existing somewhere on paper or in Excels and are communicated extremely poorly. A driver may forget when they arrived or when the unloading started and so on. The same driver may be not very diligent in reporting the trip, so it might take them a couple of weeks or a couple of days, depending on the situation, when the trip is actually finalized and be ready to be invoiced. And even then, there are multiple questions that occur. We need to check whether the accessorials that this carrier, this transportation company added to the base rate are correct. Otherwise, we are paying something not knowing what it is. So this process of triaging, hashing out involved a lot of back and forth, phone calls, emails, pushing more Excels around. It was very, very subpar and inefficient. And the business came to us with a question. They said, we want to be more effective here, and we know that there are technologies out there that can help. And that's how we got to DLT and the blockchain as a platform. Next, please. So let me fast forward to the famous before after so that you can get a flavor of how effective this project actually was. Invoicing was possible before all this reconciliation happened beforehand. As I mentioned, there were lots and lots of processing costs. After the project was done and the system implemented, it really became a real-time invoicing. We didn't have to check anything because everything was already communicated to the blockchain, to the smart contracts that guided the process of generating invoices. And essentially, when the trip was done in real world, it was ready to be invoiced. I forgot to mention in the previous slide that our trucks and our carriers' trucks had GPS boxes that transmitted live positioning information on the trucks. And that helped immensely because prior to this project, that GPS flow data was not used, whether at all or not well. And here it became a part of the transaction on the blockchain. It fused with the other facts of the transportation trip, and it was thus enabling fast and immediate invoicing. Now, disputes. 70% of all our invoices were accompanied by disputes, and those disputes were led by a third party, an expensive one. It took time and money and some goodwill depletion to have those things settled. Now we are down to 1.8% of all the transactions that need to go through this exception management dispute process. Can you imagine the magnitude of change? That really is dramatic, and that really resulted in some hardcore savings of money for our transportation fleet services. Now I managed goodwill. Then the very material problem of overpaying and underpaying our carriers, as often happens from Walmart's perspective, we more often overpaid than got, then had advantage in our accounting services. Anyways, so that practically disappeared. The transparency was never there prior to this project. And the carriers were basically left guessing not only when the payment comes, because all this processing takes time and is very tedious, but also finally, when I get my invoice paid, did Walmart calculate it well? Do I need to double check it or triple check it? Now it's all different. It's, as it says, it's an integrated network that basically allows suppliers to track the finalization of their trips and invoice accuracy in real time. And finally, the point I already made, IoT data stream coming from those GPS boxes was not used well. Paper documents were abundant, and now this information is fully integrated on the blockchain, is available at any point of time, and allows this immediate finalization of invoices. Next, please. Now, how the project was structured. So when the SVP of our logistics organization came to the technology team and said, we have a problem, it's a bad one. I know there are technologists out there, and go and select something, and let's get engaged. It was very helpful in terms of making sure that the business starts turning the wheels fast. But what happened with our partnership with DLT is really something that nobody expected. Things started to move so fast that even the most decorated veterans of technology organization were rolling their eyes, saying, "I've never seen that. How can they do things so fast?" The selection, by the way, was a pretty robust process. We had some big names, including consulting companies, technology companies, that we had to eliminate because they were not up to doing it fast and having value delivered fast as well. DLT did raise to the challenge, and they came up with a pretty aggressive scale. So in 2 months from the beginning of the project, the system was already stood up, and the pilot started to function using one carrier, the famous Canadian transportation company called Bison, already live on blockchain, handling their trips. And this lasted, as I said, for a few months. Pilot, we had it for 4 months, and in 6 months from the beginning, the decision was made by the board of Walmart Canada based on preliminary results, including ROI calculations with pretty firm committed timeline on when the money will be paid back based on this project. And in 6 months from the day one of the project, the rollout started. And it took us about 8 to 12 months to fully roll it out to all the suppliers, big, small, medium. And the technology was flexible enough to allow each, sorry, I mentioned suppliers, carriers, obviously. So each carrier, because they have all different levels of technology maturity, each carrier was able to use it at the level that they were comfortable with. Some were using APIs to connect straight into the system. The others were using web-based interfaces to interact with that. And that's how fast it went. Next, please. Now, I believe this is my last slide. What happened after the successful realization of the project, and after the 12 months, there were all kind of proven KPIs that were reported back to the board of the company saying, we invested this much and we returned that amount of money in costs saved and in being able to eliminate the third party that actually did all this triaging for Walmart. We saved on paying to carriers. Carriers are more happy because they get paid earlier and they trust the numbers they see. Based on that positive outcome, our company went on a quest, actually looking for more use cases that can be served by DLT and by blockchain as a technology platform. And right now we are engaged in 7 more projects that actually spread this technology into other areas where the business results will be quite palpable and relatively fast to achieve. Sergey, anything to add to that?
Nope. Would like to turn it to the audience for the questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all to all 3 of you. Well, first of all, congratulations. So since we wrote that case study, you were at 2% need for reconciliations. I see that your number dropped even lower. And congratulations on the 7 more projects that you're working on. It sounds like we have opportunities to do some more research there. Okay, I'm going to try to just say this delicately. So, Walmart is a very big, powerful company. Some of your smaller carriers, were they initially a little scared to join this solution? Did they think you would be gaining more power in this relationship, or how did you address and bring on your smaller transportation partners? And I don't care who answers.
Well, Sergey, since you were a very close part of that process, to start.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very good question, Mary. So, and the truth is that even the large carriers were quite skeptical in the beginning. But what happened is that because we did not just give them a promise, we gave them something real. So by the time other carriers were engaged, there was Bison already fully operational in the system. So the results were clear and could be easily communicated. And the messaging was very simple. Mr. Carrier, would you like to get paid faster? And the question was adamant yes, and that basically made the sale. Right. And then because the onboarding process was so easy, especially with kind of smaller carriers onboarding through portal and those kinds of technologies, we were able to roll it out very fast. And Alexi mentioned this as well, because there was this dual approach that was looking for like working with large carriers, making sure that we minimize the change management on their end. Right. So quite a bit of work was done on integrating back into their ongoing systems, their TMSs, transportation management systems, ERPs, and so forth, to minimize the disruption and also allow them to maximize investments they already made in technology. With the smaller carriers, it was an absolutely opposite situation. Those companies actually were underserved from technology perspective because historically they haven't been able to afford those major investments to make their life easier using tech. And here, because we also provision an interface and set of tools for them, it was very easy for them to get onboarded and also help them with automating their businesses more effectively.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have a question here. How does your blockchain framework save geospatial data? For example, is it saved on or off chain?
Yeah, thank you. Also great question. And there was kind of evolution in this thinking. In the original deployment, we were actually saving the geospatial data right on the blockchain. And then we realized that this data is transient and there is not as much value in storing this information permanently. So today, we're not storing geospatial data on chain, but we're storing critical events on chain that are then traceable back to geospatial data, which is stored off chain.
Okay, great, thank you. Alexi or Archana, you're probably not allowed to answer this, but the audience is very interested. Can you talk about any of the 7 other projects you're working on? What are the promising use cases? And it's perfectly acceptable if you say you're not allowed to answer the question yet.
I'm definitely not allowed.
Okay.
Can I do a famous trick of any politician who is answering the question? I'll just, I direct it to a different area.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, yeah, definitely those, I can just say that those projects are all very much in touch with real business reality and solving burning problems that the business is facing day in, day out. So they're not nebulous. Art is obviously not funding any scientific research, not in Canada at any rate. What I wanted to mention though is the way of implementing this project was really uneasy. We had lots and lots of obstacles. We had bumps on the road. We had to do a lot of creative things in order to get through those obstacles. And without giving even more praise to DLT, I just wanted to make sure that I at least admit the fact that they became the true owners of the technical solution in a sense that even Walmart internal things related to where we host the system, yes, in the cloud, but how does cloud instance will be communicating with the external world, how we go through all the mandatory hoops with security, and how we expose this service to the outside world, to carriers without compromising that security requirements. It was all very, very non-trivial. So throughout that process, my team and our architects, solution architects, and really some very smart development folks worked with DLT hand in hand. Nobody counted who is doing what. It was just the goal that was common that had to be reached. And this is something that is very, very crucial for these types of projects, especially if it's new and nobody knows how to deploy it, nobody knows how to orchestrate the service and so on. Unless your organization is agile enough, it would be hard to get this done quickly. And although Walmart and agile doesn't look very natural in the same sentence, to my amazement, I've been with Walmart for almost 6 years now. Walmart is very agile when you can prove the value, and this value can be delivered quickly.
Mary,
did very well,
add
Alexi.
that, you know, in US also we're doing in our Walmart US market, we're doing several other projects as well. The key thing is not just accomplishing the business use case that's in front of you, but understanding now that you have access to real-time events and data and multiple parties can see it, how does that unlock even other business processes that could be further optimized with that data? And I think that's the big reveal for everybody who's working on this project, doesn't matter which geography they're in. And I think that you reach that step of further optimizing your data after you've implemented projects in production. So I'm sure in Walmart Canada, there's further processes within how we are tracking the assets through the supply chain. Now that you have access to this real-time data for invoicing, what can you do with that data? And then on the food side, it's also understanding, you know, if you combine your traceability data with IoT, how does that now help you with freshness of items in your supply chain? So we're not working on all of these at the same time, but I just wanted to provide some more context to the audience on how the real-time data completely changes how you execute on different business processes in our organizations.
Okay, great, thank you. And anyone can answer this next question. So far, Walmart has primarily chosen a private blockchain solutions. Can you describe your decision-making process, and can you see examples where public blockchains might be selected, and what would the decision criteria look like?
I'm sorry, we missed your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's essentially, how do you think through public versus private blockchain solutions? What is the decision-making process? How do you decide to select a permission blockchain versus a public blockchain?
I can give my answer, and then I'll pass it on to Alexi and Sergey to add their point of view as well, since they have so much experience in implementing blockchain projects. From my perspective, I would say it really depends on the use case in front of you. In most organizations, you work with a known party. And that is a crucial piece of conducting business and the contractual relationships that come with it. So it really depends on the use case that you're implementing. If you're setting up an open marketplace, allowing easy access to people to come and onboard easily to the blockchain network, then public blockchain may be a use case for you. But if you're conducting a closed business with a party that you already have a contractual relationship with, then you may not want to put your data on a public blockchain. And in those cases, a permission blockchain may be prime for the use case that you're implementing on. Sergey, Alexi, anything to add here?
Same arguments in our case. Nothing really to add, Archana.
I completely agree. And just to add and expand, like in my personal opinion, what we would also be seeing moving forward is that the permissioned and private blockchains would be probably converging, and public blockchains would be converging closer, and there would be some hybrid solutions. And we see some of those developments happening with Ethereum and number of level 2 solutions. So this decision, this distinction is very important today. And the reasoning is exactly what Archana has just highlighted. Moving forward in the future, probably it will be less of a deciding factor because things would be more closer together, and it will be different criteria used for underlying blockchain selection.
Well, thank you to all three of you so much. So you are also helping our curriculum because so much in this space is just aspirational and it's coming and it's wish list, but Walmart has really already have live production systems, and there's so many lessons that we've learned from all of you about how you really come together as an ecosystem so that you deliver business and social value for all of the participants in the network. So thank you for your leadership in this space.
Thank you, Mary, for the opportunity.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so for our audience, it's now time to go back to playing the game. So please answer our next blockchain trivia game. And then after the break, we're going to come back with Catherine Carlisle, who will be leading our next session.